And we're joined by Joe DiGenova.
A brilliant lawyer.
Brilliant lawyer. How are you, Joe? Good morning to you.
I'm doing better than the Redskins.
Yeah, well, just about anybody's doing better than the Redskins. We'll take that up.
Not the Raiders.
Listen, while we're mentioning the Redskins and the NFL, I want to go back and try to talk a little bit about this thing that happened in the news. It's being reported everywhere that the DEA, the Drug Enforcement Agency, has gone after the NFL and that they were stopping teams and investigating teams and talking to team physicians about the overuse of painkillers and Ambien and drugs like that. And as I understand it, I've been doing a little more research, and I think I have this a little more clear now. This all stems from a class action lawsuit that was filed against the NFL. So you file a class action lawsuit, you lay out a bunch of allegations in the lawsuit. Those are just allegations. They're not facts. And then all of a sudden the DEA says, based on what I've seen over here in this class action suit, we need to go and ask some questions. Does that seem right?
Well, this is just another example of why the federal government is too big and too busy and not focusing on what its priorities should be. There's nothing wrong with DEA or FBI agents learning something from the public record in a lawsuit and even interviewing people and then going out and doing some investigation. That happens all the time. The question is whether or not this is a good use of the limited resources that they claim they don't have enough of.
Yeah, remember how the sequester was knocking the Department of Justice out?
Yes, and I think what this shows is this is part of the politicization of the Justice Department. Remember, DEA is part of the Justice Department. There are several U.S. attorneys around the country who obviously like to make names for themselves. This comes out of the Southern District of New York and several other U.S. attorneys' offices. I must say, I think this is a ridiculous waste of scarce federal investigative resources.
Yep.
And I think it should be left to state authorities, to medical boards if they want to say these doctors shouldn't be dispensing drugs on the road. I mean, this is just really an amazing waste of federal government scarce resources.
And just to follow up, when you hear that, for example, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, they're going out to BWI to catch their flight back after decimating the Redskins yesterday, apparently the DA stopped them, and we are told by the team, they tweeted out the information that they were delayed only 5 minutes.
Yeah.
Now, what kind of investigation is that?
I have no idea. As I said, this is. I don't know what the reason for this is, other than for PR purposes or something in response to the lawsuit to make it look like they're doing their jobs. But they shouldn't be there in the first place, absent a specific allegation by a current player, for heaven's sake.
Joe, let me draw you out a little bit on this, because I agree with you. But I got to speak out, why the NFL? I mean, if they really wanted a big-ticket, high-profile drug investigation, I don't know, I'm thinking the NBA, it's a pretty open secret that NBA players smoke pot all the time. They talk about it, in fact. What about the music industry? What about hip-hop rap artists?
I couldn't agree more. As I said, I think this is a waste of very scarce law enforcement resources. It's for show. The head of the DEA is a lifetime law enforcement official. She's known to be a bit of an overreacher. Her name is Michelle Lenhart. She's been around for years. She's been rebuked by the Court of Appeals several times for abusing her discretion. I think what you've got here is an agency that's in need of adult supervision. I'd like to know whether or not the leadership of the Justice Department was consulted about this. I mean, it's really quite remarkable, and you're absolutely right. If the DEA wants to start doing inspections of workplace sites, go to any concert in the United States, and you'll find enough drugs to sink the Bismarck.
Yeah. Hey, listen, in this last Rock the Vote video that they did for MTV, Lil Jon is on there. Lil Jon the rapper. He says, "I'm voting for the legalization of marijuana," and then they show him taking this giant hit off of a bong. Mm-hmm. You want to go after people for using drugs? Go after the music industry.
Well, remember, and also what they're looking for are painkillers with the NFL.
Yeah.
For heaven's sakes.
Like that's the plague of our nation?
This is just a technical issue about whether or not medical staffs with visiting teams can dispense legitimate drugs outside of their state.
Right.
Now, are you serious? This tells you what the DEA administrator needs. She doesn't need a cup of coffee. She needs a new job.
All right, so let's move to the other topic that's going to be big news this week, because there are many, many signs that the president is about to move unilaterally, without congressional authority, on immigration. And it looks like you can predict that the Republicans are going to go apoplectic over this, but can they stop him?
Of course not. There's nothing they can do other than impeachment, which they're not going to do, and they shouldn't do, because that's not the answer here. The answer is to pass legislation, even if I would imagine there are going to be a bunch of Democrats in the current lame duck Senate who will vote for legislation to stop this. The House should pass a bill saying that he can't do this. The Senate should try to do it. Harry Reid may or may not allow it to come for a vote. But the one thing the Republicans should not do, because it isn't clear, by the way, what the president's authority is with any exec. We have to see the order first to know whether or not it's legal. He has some discretion, but there is a difference between exercising prosecutorial discretion in a given case and exercising it in 4 million cases.
Yeah,
right.
It's the magnitude, it's the numbers that make it constitutionally suspect. But the only people who will decide that will be a court of law.
The president says, okay, look, I waited on Congress to act, and if they would only send me a bill I could sign, then I wouldn't have to do that. I'm not sure that the president understands the way the Constitution works, because what he's saying is, you've got to give me a bill that I can accept, or I'm going to do something that is extra constitutional.
Well, the president, of course, is very, very fond of using straw men, like a piece of legislation that hasn't been enacted into law. He knows quite well this is not about not understanding the Constitution. This is about a president who has acted lawlessly from the time he was sworn in, who has done nothing to accommodate the interest of other people, who revels in the notion that he can strike out and let's see who can stop me. I mean, isn't that a wonderful way for a president to act? Look at the example that he is setting for young people all over the country. It is better to flaunt the law, to flout the law, than it is to try and compromise.
Yeah.
This is the great compromiser.
Yeah,
His
right.
idea of compromise is do it my way. Someone should have said to him in that meeting, Mr. President, we won. Get over it.
Yeah. Joe, real fast, I only got 30 seconds, but the other thing that he said was, listen, this is an executive order. There's nothing stopping the next president coming in and reversing whatever executive
That's
order.
True.
But how can that happen? A president can't come in and then decide that those 5 million people who were just given green cards suddenly can't have their green card anymore,
That is
can
a
he?
political decision that the next president can make. But legally, he probably could take away those green cards if he determined that they were granted illegally. But politically, it would not be possible. So whatever the president does, if he grants green cards, which, by the way, I don't think he has the legal authority to grant any green cards this way. I think that cannot be done other than by a proper process.
Yeah.
And if he thinks he can waive that process, I think he's just legally wrong.
All right, Joe, thank you so much.
You bet.